November 1930, the Canadian Arctic. A place so remote, so frozen, that civilization feels like a distant memory. A fur trapper named Joe Labelle is making his way through the snow toward a familiar Inuit village near Lake Angikuni. He's been there before. He knows the people. He's looking forward to warm fires, friendly faces, maybe a hot meal to break the brutal cold. But as he gets closer, something's wrong. There's no smoke rising from the chimneys, no dogs barking, no children are laughing, just silence, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. He walks into the village and finds the fires still smoldering, food hanging over the pits, partially cooked, needles still stuck in half-finished clothing. Personal belongings were scattered everywhere, rifles leaning against tent walls, which is insane, because in the Arctic you never leave your rifle behind. And the people? Gone, every single one of them. Not one person was found, yet every home was left behind. But here's where this story gets truly disturbing. When the Royal Canadian Mounted Police arrived to investigate, they found something even more chilling. The village graveyard had been disturbed, graves dug up, bodies missing. This is the story of the Lake Angikuni disappearance, one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries in North American history. And I'm going to be honest with you, the more you learn about this case, the less sense it makes. Whether this story is true, exaggerated, or something in between, the questions it raises are absolutely terrifying. Let's dive in. So let's set the scene properly, because context matters here. Lake Angikuni is located in what's now Nunavut, Canada, about 500 miles north of the village of Churchill. In 1930, this was part of the Northwest Territories, one of the most remote, unforgiving places on Earth. We're talking temperatures that drop to -40, blizzards that can bury you in minutes, and darkness that lasts for months. The Inuit people had lived in this region for thousands of years. They knew how to survive here. They had to, because one mistake, one moment of carelessness, and the Arctic would kill you. Joe Labelle was a fur trapper who knew the region and had visited this particular village many times before. Some accounts say the village had around 25 to 30 people. Others claim more. The exact number isn't clear, and that's actually part of the problem with this story, but we'll get to that. On this particular November day in 1930, Labelle approached the village expecting the usual warm welcome. Instead, he was greeted with eerie stillness. As he walked through the village, he found open doors, half-cooked meals, and even clothing still drying on lines, but no people. The cooking fires had long gone cold, but the food was still there. Personal items, tools, clothing, everything you'd need to survive the Arctic winter, all abandoned. Now, if you know anything about survival in extreme environments, you'll understand why this is so strange. In the Arctic, your possessions aren't just belongings. They're your lifeline. Your warm clothing keeps you alive. Your rifle protects you from predators and provides food. Your sled dogs are your transportation. You don't just leave these things behind, ever. But the villagers did. Labelle kept searching, and the situation got worse. He found 7 sled dogs still tied to their posts, all dead from starvation. Think about that for a second. These dogs would have been vital to the community's survival. In the Arctic, sled dogs aren't pets. They're essential workers. They pull your supplies, help you hunt, warn you of danger. The villagers left these dogs tied up, unable to escape or find food, and they slowly starved to death. Which means either the people left in such a panic that they forgot about their dogs, or they physically couldn't come back to free them. Both possibilities are horrifying. Then came the detail that turned this from strange to genuinely nightmare-inducing. Labelle found that graves in the village cemetery had been dug up, and he knew an animal couldn't have been responsible because the stones circling the grave were undisturbed. Someone or something had carefully opened these graves and removed the bodies. In Inuit culture, disturbing graves is a serious taboo. It's one of the worst things you can do. So whoever did this either didn't know about the taboo, didn't care, or wasn't human. Labelle had seen enough. He was spooked. He left the village and traveled for miles through sub-zero temperatures to the nearest telegraph office to contact the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. When the Mounties arrived, they confirmed everything Labelle had reported. The empty village, the abandoned supplies, the dead dogs, the disturbed graves. They conducted a search for the missing people, but no one was ever found. Now here's where things get even stranger. According to some versions of the story, on their way to the village, the police stopped at a trapper's cabin. The trapper, Armand Laurent, and his sons told them something odd. Just days before, they'd seen a strange glowing object in the sky, flying in the direction of Lake Angikuni. They described it changing shape, from a cylinder to a bullet-like form. This detail is where skeptics start rolling their eyes, and honestly, I get it. It sounds like classic UFO mythology. But let's table that for now and focus on what we know for certain. The mounted police investigation turned up no bodies, no tracks leading away from the village, no signs of violence or struggle. They discovered the Inuit had been missing for almost 8 weeks before Labelle's arrival, but they were never able to determine why the entire group had left the area. The case was eventually closed. No answers, no resolution, just an empty village and a growing legend. Part 4. The theories. So what happened? Over the decades, people have proposed dozens of theories. Let's go through the main ones. Theory 1. Mass migration. Maybe the villagers simply moved. Perhaps they relocated to another settlement for better hunting, or to join family members, or because of some disagreement within the community. But this doesn't explain why they left everything behind. Food, weapons, clothing, dogs. If you're planning to migrate in the Arctic winter, you take your survival gear. You don't abandon it. Theory 2. Disease or disaster, maybe an epidemic struck the village, or some natural disaster forced them to flee suddenly. But where are the bodies? If disease killed them, there should be remains somewhere. If a blizzard caught them, searchers should have found frozen bodies along the trails. They found nothing. Theory 3. Government relocation. During this period, the Canadian government did forcibly relocate some Inuit communities. Maybe this was one of those cases, and the records were lost or suppressed. This is actually one of the more plausible theories, but it doesn't explain the disturbed graves or why the relocation would be kept secret for nearly a century. Theory 4. Supernatural or extraterrestrial. Some people point to Inuit legends about evil spirits like Tornrock. Others cite the reported UFO sighting and suggest alien abduction. These are the most dramatic theories, and they're also the least provable. But they're part of why this story has such staying power in popular culture. Part 5. The skeptics speak now. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Is any of this actually true? Because here's the thing. There are some serious problems with this story. The story first appeared in the November 27, 1930 issue of the Danville Bee newspaper. written by journalist Emmett E. Kelleher, and Kelleher had a reputation. He had previously faced criticism for embellishing his writings, and it was later established that one of the images he used was decades old. Records show that Labelle had never taken out a hunting license before 1930, which raises questions about whether he was really a seasoned trapper, as the story claims. And here's just the big one. The RCMP has stated they have no official records of an investigation into a vanishing village. They've dismissed the entire story as an urban legend. So did this happen at all? Or is it just a spooky campfire story that got out of hand? The answer is ... We don't actually know. Because while the RCMP says they have no records, the Danville Bee article from November 1930 does indeed exist. Someone reported something in 1930, whether it was accurate, exaggerated, or completely fabricated. That's the mystery. Part 6. Why this story endures here is what fascinates me about the Lake Angikuni case. Even if that's not true, it could be true. And that's what makes it terrifying. The Canadian Arctic is vast and unforgiving. Even today, with satellites and GPS and modern technology, there are places up there where you could vanish and never be found. In 1930? Forget about it. You could disappear into the wilderness, and it would be like you never existed. The story taps into something primal in us. The fear of abandonment, the fear of the unknown, the fear that the world is bigger and stranger than we understand, and that sometimes people just ... disappear. And whether the details are accurate or not, we know for a fact that indigenous communities in the Arctic were forcibly relocated during this period. Families were torn apart. Villages did disappear from maps, not because of aliens or evil spirits, but because of government policy. So maybe the Lake Angikuni story is a legend, but it's a legend built on very real historical trauma. Even today, Lake Angikuni is still there, still remote, still frozen for much of the year, and according to local stories, it's still haunted by what happened or what might have happened. People who visit the area report strange feelings of unease. Some claim to see mysterious lights in the sky. Others talk about hearing whispers carried on the wind. Are these real experiences, or is it just the power of suggestion? When you're standing in one of the most isolated places on Earth, knowing the legend, is your mind just playing tricks on you? Or is something actually there? The Inuit elders in the region generally don't like talking about Angikuni. Some believe it's better not to speak of certain things for fear of drawing their attention. And you know what? In a place as harsh and mysterious as the Arctic, maybe they're right. So where do we land with the Lake Angikuni mystery? Here's the breakdown. We have a story first reported in 1930 by a journalist with a questionable reputation. We have a fur trapper, Joe Labelle, whose credentials are a bit shaky. We have no official police records confirming any investigation. And we have the Royal Canadian Mounted Police themselves, the RCMP, who have explicitly stated that this whole thing is just an urban legend. But on the other hand, we do have that original newspaper article. We have persistent local legends that refuse to die. We have similar stories of unexplained disappearances from other parts of the world. And we have the undeniable fact that back in 1930, in one of the most remote regions on Earth, strange things could absolutely happen without anyone ever knowing the full truth. So did an entire village vanish without a trace? Probably not in the dramatic way the legend describes. But did something happen at Lake Angikuni that sparked this story? Did a few people disappear? Did Labelle find an abandoned camp and let his imagination fill in the rest? Did journalists just sensationalize a real, smaller event until it became completely unrecognizable? We may never know for sure, and maybe that's okay, because the Lake Angikuni story isn't really about what happened in 1930. It is about the mystery itself. It's about those questions that keep us up at night. It's about the realization that even in our modern, connected, Google-mapped world, there are still blank spaces on the map. There are still places where the rules don't quite seem to apply, and there are still stories that refuse to be fully explained. The village that vanished without a single body ever being found might just be a myth. But the feeling it gives you, that unease, that curiosity, that primal fear of the unknown, that's very, very real. So what do you think? Did this really happen? Is there a kernel of truth buried deep inside the legend? Or is it just a great campfire story that we keep telling because, on some level, we want it to be true? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to see what you believe. And if you enjoyed diving into this mysterious case, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more unexplained mysteries, unsolved cases, and stories that'll make you question everything you thought you knew. Thanks for watching. And remember, the next time you're alone in the wilderness and things get a little too quiet, maybe there's a reason. Stay curious.